We would also like to organize, for example, on the relevance of languages.
Yeah.
So I mean, we'd like to do all of this. So,
Right.
anyways, I think I'll hand over to Dr. Shraddha now because she's the
Yeah.
one who's been driving this session.
Sure.
And I welcome everybody. I can see a lot of people here who've joined us. Thank you so much. This is our initial sort of inaugural effort, and we can only drive this with the support of all the people. So
Very
please feel
important.
free to participate. Please feel free to ask questions. Professor Vaidyanathan is one of the I would say eminent experts who's done a lot of work and has been associated with the Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore, and also was one of the people who has been a driving factor in framing our syllabus, especially on political economy and national security. So over to you, Dr. Shraddha, please.
Thank you so much, sir. Since you have already informally introduced the speaker, I would like to skip all the formalities and move ahead with the formal introduction of the speaker. So, Professor R. Vaidyanathan is a retired professor of finance at IIM Bangalore, a graduate of Loyola College, Madras, and master's from the Indian Statistical Institute, Kolkata. He obtained his doctorate from Indian Institute of Management, Calcutta. Sir is two times Fulbright Scholar and a fellow of ICSSR visiting faculty at various universities in US and UK. He has been selected by Business Today as one of the 10 best professors at IIM and has had a rare privilege of being in a various committees of regulators such as Reserve Bank of India, the Security and Exchange Board of India, and Insurance Regulatory and Development Authority, to name a few. He has been conferred Life Contribution Award by Asia Pacific Risk and Insurance Association and Kyobo Life in 2019. His books, India and in Role of Non-Corporate Sector in India and Black Money and Tax Haven, have been critically acclaimed and well received by planners and policymakers. Sir is also on the advisory council of Vivek Anand International Foundation and was a member of National Security Advisory Board under National Security Council. So with this very brief introduction, I would now like to formally invite Professor Vaidyanathan to deliver his lecture on Global Financial System, Emerging Trends and Implication for India. Over to you, sir.
So thank you very much, Dr. Shraddha. And at the outset, I would like to welcome you all. My good morning to all of you who are able to make yourself available for this session. And I would like to thank Professor Bimal Patel, who is the Vice Chancellor, who has been very much pioneering an initiative in terms of this various courses and various type of departments in the university. And then Dr. Venkat for pushing this whole initiative and coordinating and building it up and recruiting people. And then, he is a very good taskmaster actually. He assembled a group of people and took a whip in his hand and told, finalize all the courses immediately. And then we did that over a period of time. Anyhow, thanks Venkat, who is very, very energetic and enthusiastic. Last but not least is Shraddha for taking the initiative. And she has been very much into this and, providing a lot of guidelines and providing a lot of inputs for how to go about doing it. Thank you, Shraddha. And also Siddharth and various others who have been helpful in terms of administratively supporting this. So today and tomorrow, today we will look at the major issues in global financial system, what type of trends are taking place. Tomorrow we will see what are the various type of constraints, regulatory framework, and how the sovereign states are reacting to the major developments in the financial system, how they would like to refashion the financial system, particularly the G20, G7, and various other groupings and other things. That will be our focus tomorrow. So today, see, there is a huge amount of development which has taken place in the global financial system, particularly in the last 15, 20 years, one can say, definitely. And more so post 2008, in terms of the financial crisis most of you would have heard about. Basically, the global financial system, how it has changed is, see, if you go back to 1990, and some of you might not have been born, or some of you might have been in school that time. Anyhow, it's not too far away, 30 years before. If you just go to 1990, go to the first slide, next one. Yeah, you find that G7, I'm sure most of you would have heard about G7, the group of 7 countries, including USA, Canada, UK, Germany, France. So these countries constituted 51% of the global GDP, more than half of the global GDP in 1990. Whereas the emerging market constituted roughly, emerging market, mainly 4 countries only, which are major one: India, China, uh, Brazil, and Indonesia. These are the 4 emerging market countries. They constitute, in terms of population, in terms of the market, in terms of size, these are the 4 major countries. They had something like 36% of the share of the global GDP. GDP is gross domestic product, which is the global income. In terms of individual countries, we call it as national income. When we are talking in terms of the global, we talk it as global income. And it is measured on PPP, we have written it there. What is purchasing power parity? Because the incomes of different countries are not easily comparable directly. You have to have a measure. For instance, in Indian rupees, suppose I am earning 50,000 rupees, let's say, as an example. My niece, who is teaching in California, she is earning some $50,000. Both are 50,000, but they are not easily comparable. The reason is, I can get a maid in India, in my city, Bangalore, who can come and clean my room and wash my clothes and do all the vessels and all the thing for something like, say, 5,000 to 6,000 rupee per month. Per month. Whereas she can get a person to come and do this thing per hour, $40 she has to pay. Per hour, $40 mean at 70 rupee for US dollar, it comes to 2,800 rupees. I pay for month 5,000 rupee. She pays for 2 hours what I pay in the month. So the purchasing power is not same in both the countries. There is a need to adjust for that in order to compare the national income of or situation in both the countries. The other side, if you take, in India, I have to spend on food and provisions and vegetable and chicken, egg, and various other things put together, something like 50 to 55% of my income. A middle class has to spend anywhere between 50 to 60% of the income on all these items every month. Whereas in US, for instance, she has to spend only 12 to 15%. That's called in the economic jargon Engel's curve. We are on this side of the curve, whereas they are on the other side of the curve. So the purchasing power is again different between the 2 countries on this basis. So in order to overcome this issue, IMF has evolved a method of some index. We are not going into the technical aspect of it, in order to make the income comparable. That's why it is called GDP based on purchasing power parity. After doing that adjustment, we find in 1990s, the G7 had something like 51%, while the emerging market, these 4 countries I told you, China, India, and this Brazil and Indonesia, they had 36%. But when you come to around 2016, which is much before the pandemic and other thing, the G7 has only 52%. Of course, some of you may know that G7 has now become G20. They have enlarged it to include including India. But still, G7 is the main force who sit on the main dining table, you may call it, if you want. So the other countries are now 52%. There is a huge shift which has taken place. And the decline of G7, kindly note, is monotonic. It's continuously declining. The increase of the emerging market is also continuous, monotonic. So this is the crux of the issue which has taken place in the last 30 years. And more so in the last 10 years, you may call it. What they call is the economic axis has shifted to Asia. This has been recognized by almost all the experts today. Wall Street Journal has also written several articles on this. And so the axis of economy has shifted to Asia. It's no more centered around US or Europe. That is the basic thing. If you go to the next slide, just see these four countries. This is the same thing I am presenting in the form of a chart. China is number one on purchasing power parity. China has got roughly 19% of the global income. United States is following with 15%. India is 8% and Japan is 4%. This is the share of the global income of these four countries under the purchasing power price parity basis. This is the total income. Kindly note, not per capita or anything. So if you go to the next slide, you see the list there. This is the global position today. China is number one, USA, India, and Japan. Even in nominal term, what is called without adjusting for purchasing power parity, China is nearly reaching US actually. In rupee term, in dollar term, without adjusting for anything, China is also reaching around 22 trillion. If you take the nominal term, then it will be USA, China, then after that Japan, then India comes, then UK, France, Germany, and other. India is actually higher than the other three today. Anyhow, you might have heard about Brexit, I am sure. So Europe is not a major force anymore after that. So these are the four countries. So the global economist, financial expert, if you were born in beginning of last century, 1905, 1910, they were telling everyone you must study UK, France, Germany, and US. These are the four countries which will shape the nature of the world in the next 30, 40 years. So all the books and everything carried stories about them. UK, France, Germany, and US. Today, all over the world, people are telling these are the four countries which you should study now. China, USA, India, and Japan. And these are the ones which is going to shape the next 30, 40 years. What is going to happen in the world and various type of issues and other things. That is the beginning point. But there is a significant amount of issues involved in these. All these are not identical countries or anything. Each has got their own. For instance, China's social and political system is totally different than that of India, which itself is different than that of Japan and USA. So all of these are in different ways having different type of systems, but competing with each other. Next one, we can go. Major factors in the financial system. First is most important is demography. Now, countries like India, if you want to draw a population map, we draw it like a triangle. In other words, there is less number of people on the top of the triangle, more number of people in the base. In India, for instance, between 15 years and 40 years, roughly 65% of the population is there. It's a huge, huge thing. 2/3 of the people are in that age group. If you go to Europe or Northern Europe, Japan also, you find a significant number of people are on the higher side, actually. It is the inverted pyramid type. In other words, roughly 25% of the Japanese are above 60 today. And it is expected to become 40 to 50%. Japan is facing a huge demographic crisis. In all these countries, both in Western Europe, Northern Europe, and Japan and Russia, there are more coffins than cradles. That is, the addition to the population from below is much, much lesser. So there is an inverted pyramid. What is the implication for that? Inverted pyramid means it is a requirement to take care of the elderly people. That means there has to be enough amount of social security for people who have retired. Elderly people mean, roughly 60. Some countries it is 65. We can use something like a thumb rule of 60. There is something called people above 60, how many numbers are there? And the people between 16 and 60, how many numbers are there? And these two numbers have to be, in other words, people in the age group of 16 to 60 are expected to sustain people who are above 60. This is the sort of a thumb rule. In countries in Europe as well as in Japan, the proportion is increasing for people above 60. Now there are 2-3 things. Most of these countries have social security schemes. They have what is known as the defined contribution type of a, and many countries moved into defined contribution pension system. Before 2005, many countries were having defined benefit. Defined benefit means number of years you put in service in an organization will decide how much pension you will get at the end of your retirement. If you have put in 30 years, a formula will be adopted. On that basis, you will get your pension. You don't have to contribute anything at all. And that will be annuitized. That means every month you will be getting a check based upon that pension. But many organizations are struggling hard in order to meet this. So many moved into what is called defined contribution. That means the employee will give 10%. The employer will give 10%. Today in India, anybody who joins a service after 2004 would be under defined contribution. That means this together will be kept in a fund, and that fund will grow. They will invest. We will come to that. And then based upon the growth of the fund, at the time of a retirement, you will get your money, how much you want to give. That's called defined contribution. This fund is sometime government create this fund in order to meet the obligation. So, and so the fund is becoming larger and larger because of the requirement, as I told you, for elderly people. And there is another issue compared to 30 years before. When people retired, they normally used to go to church or temples or, read religious books and spend time. That's how they want to spend their retirement time. Not anymore. Now the retirees after 60, they tend to travel all over the world. They want to see places. If you go to beaches and other thing, for instance, in India, there is a place called Goa. If you go there, you will find very elderly people coming from all over the world. In the 60s, mostly the hippies came who used to take drugs and other things. Maybe the same people who have grown up now and then coming in one doesn't know. Anyhow, the elderly people are not anymore in sort of a retirement and then sitting at home or anything. They all want to see the world. They want to, and for that you require money after retirement because you are not getting any income or anything. So the pension fund has to meet your obligation. Most of the large pension fund, you can shift from one fund to another if they are not earning well. So they have to somehow earn well in order to meet your requirement. And in the context of inflation, in the context of, these are all post, pre this pandemic. Post pandemic, there is much more requirement in terms of healthcare and other things. So the pension funds are looking for markets. That's a fundamental thing. Pension fund means we are not talking about some 100 million or 1 billion or something. In total, anywhere between 15 to 20 trillion US dollar is the funds available. That's the largest, funding agency, global financially today. Pension funds are the largest actually. And they are looking for markets. So kindly note, most important thing in the global financial system is funds are looking for market. Markets are not anymore looking for funds. Some 20 years before, large number of people from India and China and various countries used to go to France or Germany or Switzerland or USA and conduct seminars, come to our country, please invest in our country, we have these attractions and other things. Now it is not like that. Now there is no need for anybody to visit those places to invite. It's the other way. They all come. They all want to come and invest because they want to earn reasonable level of returns. And in the domestic market, by domestic market, I mean the market in Europe and other places, the returns are very, very unattractive. They are not. One is the market, as I told you, is not very large. It's not increasing from below. by and large, because of demographic and because of this reproductive. Many of the countries, the reproductive rate is less than 2. Some of them are 1.5. Northern Europe, Norway, Sweden and other thing, if you go, it is less than 1, the reproductive rate. So there is not much of a increase in population from below also. So the funds do not have adequate space. Earlier, they used to invest 15% of their corpus globally in other territories like Africa, Asia, and other. Now, slowly it is increasing to 30 to 40% of their corpus. They are looking really for corpus. So, demography has completely altered the way in which fund flows are taking place. Not only that, wherever the government has created these funds, some of them are also called sovereign wealth funds. That is something very, very interesting. One of the largest sovereign wealth fund is by Norway. Then Singapore has got a sovereign wealth fund. They have this. So these funds are also investing all over the world. And these funds, of course, have got some regulation. For instance, they will say they cannot invest in less than triple B type of investment. Triple B and double A and other thing are all decided by credit rating agencies. Anything less than triple B is considered as speculative grade. Anything more than triple B is considered as investment grade. So the credit rating agencies tells these are the investment opportunities, these are the corporate, these are the companies, these are the government bonds which are above triple B. And these funds will, Tamasak of Singapore or Norwegian fund, they will. So sovereign wealth fund is also one of the huge type of a fund which is available on the global market. Okay, demography is something which we should keep in the back of the mind, very important. For instance, I told you about the crisis in Japan. Japan is having acute crisis. They have a council for aging, and I am a member of it. I don't know why I am a member. Maybe I am aging. That's the only reason. You see, Japan doesn't encourage migration. They don't want other people to come in, like Europe, gets boats and boats of migration from Africa and other places. And US gets migration from Mexico and other places. India gets from Bangladesh and other places. But Japan is Japan is not enthusiastic. And Japan's reproductive rate is very low. And interestingly, Japanese women are not interested in getting married. That is another thing. Ashagi Shimbun recently conducted a survey. 80% of the Japanese women are not interested in marriage, at least till they are 30. After that, some of them, but after 30, the possibility of getting large number of children is relatively low. You may have one child or something like that only. So Japan is having a acute type of a problem. Whenever we meet, I go often to Tokyo, we conduct, I again and again tell you are going to be a endangered species in another 15-20 years. Museum on Japanese will be kept in a glass case, and everybody will, he is a Japanese, what did he do? Nothing he did. He got extinct. So we have to preserve him and we have to take care of him. It's a real crisis there actually. I'm not, Russia is facing a similar problem. Today there are 100 Russians. By 2028, another 5 years, actually, there is going to be only 85 Russians. 15 Russians will be less. We are not talking about growth rate or anything. We are talking about numbers itself. So Russia is also having a huge amount of problem. Many countries are facing, but these are some extreme. Europe is facing the same type of a problem. India and China are not facing as much acute problem. Maybe after some 30, 40 years, they will also start facing the problem. China is facing it in some locations, actually, because they adopted one child norm and other. Why I am talking about it is the demography decides about the size of the fund, nature of the fund, and the flow of the fund. All these we have to keep in the back of the mind. The next item is high indebtedness. Household saving, if you look at in G7, most of them is single rate only, 6%, 7%, saving as a proportion of the GDP. In India, the saving rate itself is very high. Our saving rate is 30% actually. Household saving constitute 80% of that. We are one of the highest saving countries in the world, along with China. We too. And we save mostly in banks. Both the countries, we are bank-oriented nation. So other countries have huge amount of indebtedness of household. They don't save. One reason is they feel the government anyhow will take care of them. On retirement, the UK has got this National Health Service. Europe has got their health service. And many places, old age homes are being built by government. So there is, what is the need for us to save, and their children are not going to be taking care of them. They have to be in the old age home, and then, so there is no need for us to, what I loosely call, families have been nationalized in Western countries. Families have been nationalized and business is privatized. This is something very, very interesting. Anyhow, India situation, our indebtedness is very, very low. Household saving rate is very high, substantially high. And a large amount of this saving is routed through the banks to the business and commerce. So what is happening is, globally, one set of countries, G7 and various other European countries, they only spend, they don't save much, households. Whereas countries like India and China, we save a lot. So that's how the global balance is done. For instance, we have some 600 billion, more than half a trillion US dollar in our foreign reserves. All of that we have kept it in the various securities of other countries like US, UK, and same thing about China. China is very much interested in keeping the dollar at high level for the simple reason their investment in dollar account is relatively very large. US is a very interesting country. They have created a situation wherein everybody has invested in dollar. Everybody has got a vested interest in dollar being in a higher position or a better position. So in terms of government securities, US government securities, 60% of that is invested by people from other than US, actually, outside. So huge amount of investment flows are taking place. So there is a, what one can call a big amount of difference in terms of the saving patterns of the world. And that also has implication in terms of the fund flows. Declining population, we told, and funds in search of market. Search spelling is not correct. Okay, next. These are the first major source of funding is pension. Insurance is another source, but in Europe and other places, insurance industry is declining. Life insurance particularly, because life expectancy is relatively very high there. At 60, your life expectancy in US is 84. That means if you reach 60, the probability of you living up to mid-80 is very large. So there is not, so when your life expectancy is high and there is not much of a risk associated with your health and other things, the life insurance is not so much in popularity. We are not talking about the product insurance, health, what you call your other type of insurance. Pension fund is the single largest. I told you it runs into trillion. Next comes the mutual funds. Different type of mutual fund, debt-oriented funds, equity-oriented funds, and other. And these mutual funds invest in other countries. The mutual funds of Germany, mutual funds of UK. They, of course, they have their own restrictions in terms of how much to invest in, equity-oriented scheme, how much to invest in debt-oriented scheme, and other things. Mutual funds are relatively conservative. Then we have private equity, which is one of the largest groups of investments today, which is also running into 10 trillion, 12 trillion, other thing. This is very, very interesting. This private equity goes for what are called risky type of investments. They would go to India, or they would take up projects or take up, for instance, we have an idea of unicorn. You might have heard about it. Companies which are more than 100 crores. Many of the youngsters have floated companies. Bangalore itself has got some 50, 55 of them. And these private equities invest in those companies, expecting good return within a period of 3 to 4 years, and then they will exit from there. So private equity funds are one of the major sources today. And again, who is contributing to this private equity fund? It could be a group of other funds. It could be high net worth individual, or it could be other type of pension funds which you do not want directly to invest. So different type of combinations are available for, and this is one of the major sources. Other is hedge funds. Hedge funds are those which are, what we call in the financial jargon, arbitrage. In terms of some amount of investment is done in equity, and some in derivative product, some in terms of in this forex type of. So some we would like to invest in debt funds. So they are spreading in order to hedge against risk. And some hedge funds are also geographical hedge funds. That means I invest some amount in, say, China, but not very sure about the developments in China. What type of, So some portion of the other funds I invest in India. Some portion of the other funds I invest in France. Similarly, I invest some funds in Nigeria, but I am not very sure about the political situation in Nigeria, because it could be volatile. Or so what I do is I take some portion of the other funds into some other country. So it could be geographical diversification. It could be diversification across industries. That also the hedge funds do. I invest something in, say, petroleum and crude oil and other things. But today the whole thing is very volatile. A lot of electric vehicles are coming, electric cars are coming. So one doesn't know what is the future of this oil business itself. So I don't want to lock myself. So I put some other amount of funds in other type of industries, like electric car or emerging industries, solar power. And so this type of diversification, geographical diversification, industry diversification, all these are undertaken. Sovereign wealth fund, we saw. Banking and term lending is a traditional type of financiers who have the huge amount of fund. But unfortunately or interestingly, what has happened is banks have also entered into all type of other activities in the world. This is post Reagan's reforms. After the Reagan reform is one of the important things. Traditionally, banks are doing banking business. At Reagan time, the banks are allowed to go into investment banking. Banks can enter into share market. Banks can enter into insurance. For instance, India, it's called universal banking. If you go to a bank, that bank will offer you so many services: insurance services, mutual fund, trading in share market, all the services. Post 2008 crisis, where huge number of financial institutions got hit, Lehman got closed, and so many other. Again, US has brought in some amount of restrictions on commercial banks going into investment banking and other things. The jargon in finance is it is risk upon risk. For instance, let's take an example. 9/11 happened. So many, the two twin towers got attacked and another thing. So many insurance businesses went out of business for the simple reason nobody anticipated that this level of claims will be made, and they are not able to meet the level of claims. Because they compute that average claim will be around 15%, 20%, another thing. And suppose these insurance companies are all owned by banks, then what happened? All the banks also would have been hit. So this is called risk upon risk. So the government, US legislature brought in certain amount of regulation which prohibited commercial banks from getting into other type of activities. There are high net worth individuals. This is another interesting thing. HNIs they are called. Because nowadays you will be reading in paper, one individual is having 100 billion or 1 billion, he is a billionaire, or 50 billion, another thing. And he would have got it because of share options, stock options, or it could be because his business is well, and then significant amount of salary hike has been given. And these high net worth individual, they have what are called home office, their own private investment counselors and advisors, and they tell them that these are the avenues in which you can invest. Something interesting also take place. Sometimes they divorce their wives. That is purely in order to adjust for taxes. Don't think that they have differences of opinion or anything like that. There is a huge amount of issues involved. Sometimes prenuptial contracts are entered where it is very clearly told post-marriage, in case we split, how to split the amount, how to split the trust, how to split the taxes, and how to, who will take the dog, who will take the cat, and all the things. These are called prenuptial contracts. Same way, this high net worth individual, recently you would have seen some big timers are diversing, Amazon chief and this Microsoft chief, and most of it is tax arbitrage, it is called, in order to shift the significant portion of the funds into the wife's kitty. And then they also float trust. We will see that tomorrow in some of the tax havens, and then invest funds there also. So high net worth individuals are increasingly, there is one high net worth individual who is not only investing in various things, he is also encouraging destabilizing countries. That is another type of a situation. These are, one or two individuals, they have their own things. And then there are some which are called fund of funds. For instance, mutual funds are supposed to help individuals to, invest. You put it in mutual funds some money and he will invest on your behalf. But today there are 1,400 mutual funds running into some 2,000 schemes. In India itself, there are some 500 schemes available with 20-25 mutual funds. So what has happened is, you have to choose the fund to invest. Mutual fund is supposed to help you to invest in the various instruments, but so many funds, you get confused. So this fund of fund has come. That means this mutual fund will collect money from you and decide which mutual funds to invest. So this is the sort of second level or second hierarchy. Then there are so many other type of stock market instruments also which have come and popular. Next one, these are sources of finance. Now, what are the last decade? Three major powerful forces are operating on the global financial system. Globalization, we will come to that. IT and telecommunication and convergence. Globalization simply means, for finance only I am telling, means ability of you to invest in a country and withdraw from that country. That is, entry and exit should be smooth. Then it is called a globalized country. Is there such perfect condition? No country actually. Some restriction or other will always be there in every country. For instance, in investing in US, there are a lot of restrictions. Chinese are not allowed to invest in certain categories, strategic aspects. Like that, every country has got some amount of restriction. And sometime what happened, Thailand underwent economic crisis. They actually halted anyone exiting Thailand market. Many people wanted to sell from the Thailand securities and other thing. It was told, no, you cannot sell. So that type of restriction come. Uninterrupted exit and uninterrupted entry. That is the criteria for a globalized market, for a country. India had its own restriction till 92. Post PV Narasimha Rao period, large amount of these restrictions have been removed. So the foreign funds can come and invest as well as take out. As of now, there are no major restriction. Earlier, there were restrictions on amount of dividend they can do and all that. All that is now more or less removed. Except some strategic areas, they are not expected to invest. If they invest in the share market, by and large, it is called foreign institutional investors. They are registered with the Security Exchange Board of India in India. And then on that basis, if they invest in factories or in businesses directly, it's called foreign direct investment, FDI. So FII and FDI, they constitute a very interesting, not very large. Even today, it is not more than 10% of our domestic investment. But still, they are what one can loosely call at the margin, they are very, very important. So globalization of funds have taken place. The funds can move from one location to another. In the past, it was very difficult. US funds have to be invested only in US, or German funds only in Germany, like that. But all that restriction slowly got away. In the last 10 years, there is a significant amount of movement of funds from one location to another. And this movement has been phenomenally facilitated by the IT. You can move funds from one location to another in a matter of hours. If you look back 10 years before, if you have to send some money sitting at Bangalore to somebody in US, it will take at least 4 or 5 days, or sometime 1 week even. It has to be sent through the SWIFT method, and it has to be telegraphic transfer and all that. Today, within 2 hours, funds can be shifted. So this is something phenomenally important to understand. Information technology and telecommunication has wrought havoc with the financial system. One is this shifting of fund. Second is, for instance, banking institution as an example. Another 10 years, maybe 5 years, one doesn't know, there won't be any banks. Take my word, banks are dead, not bankers. Banks are dead. What will be the bank? This will be the bank. This is the bank. Where is your bank, sir? This, that's all. There is no brick and mortar bank. Today itself, you don't have to visit a branch at all. You can use ATM, you can use internet, you can use telephone. All sorts of advantages are there. And very interestingly, bank like Citibank in some center, they charge you for entering into their branch and meeting people. That's called personal banking in financial jargon. If you want a human touch, then you have to pay 100 rupee or 200 rupee, they charge. They encourage you to do what are called impersonal banking. That means you should not be meeting any human being. You have to only, you ring up and then they will say press 1 for English, press 2 for Hindi, and then again, press 1 for, and then press 2. If you are a new customer, get lost. All that thing will come. So the whole thing is completely changed, altered the banking scenario. Same thing in the share market. Now, stock market, order placement is by by the software side. Execution of order, software. And then the completion of the order is also software. And then transaction, software. And then finally, your shares are delivered to you or cash is given to you. All of that is facilitated by internet. If you go 10 years before, you have to wait for 1 week at least for your money to come to you. In the share market, it's called a settlement. Settlements used to be on a weekly basis. Today it is T+2. That means if I execute an order today is Monday, by Wednesday, either I should get the shares or I get the money. If I am selling, I should get the money. If I am buying, I should get the shares. T+2 is followed, and that's one of the best method. Even NY, New York Stock Exchange, followed T+2. All of the global exchanges, the entire market operation, to that extent, what has happened is, for instance, in India, we used to have 25 stock exchanges. Every state used to have one stock exchange. Some states used to have two, actually, for like Bangalore and Mangalore, and Bombay and Pune, like that. And finally, now there are only two stock exchanges. Of that, one is the most dominant one, National Stock Exchange. So all other exchanges have become redundant because of the interconnectivity. If I am in Bangalore, I am in an advantageous position to trade through Bombay or National Stock Exchange because the order book is very large there. It's an all India order book. Whereas in Bangalore, only if I am looking at, I will get a very, very small type of thing. It's like I have a house, I can sell it to anybody in the country. Is a much, much bigger market, right? Same way. So the information technology has created havoc in the financial system. Huge number of changes have come about. You can nowadays, for instance, online, you can purchase insurance. 80% of insurance in France is sold on online. No more one person will come and talk to you and all that is over. You go to the online, you tell the nature of your car, how many years before it was purchased, what is the model, another thing. And has there been any recent accident or something, that all information is collected by the agency, and they will tell you what is the premium you have to pay. That's all. Sit at home and do there is no need for you to move anywhere. All these industries have been affected. And also there is a plus point. What is the plus point? To good amount of extent, interaction with the individual is reduced, and to that extent, corruption has come down all over the world. Earlier, there used to be face-to-face interaction. For instance, one example, which is outside but it is also relevant, railways in India. Before 90s, if you go to a train station, you have to meet a man with a black coat called the TTE, and he will allot you a berth or a seat or something. For some, obviously, you have to give him some money and other. Without TTE, you cannot travel anywhere. In those days, the Delhi cabinet minister used to recommend who should be appointed TTE in which station. And today you can see the entire railway system is computerized. You book through computer, you will get the seat, everything. So same thing with passport. So many examples can be given. So the telecommunication and IT has significantly changed the way in which the entire financial system is functioning. This is and India is one of the most, believe me, advanced and foremost countries. Recently, somebody went to US and found out there is nothing called Paytm or something. Anyway, here the retail fellow, Panpuri seller is also having one Paytm and then collecting money out of that, right? So we are much faster. We are slower to adopt something, but very fast to get on with it, right? Convergence is same activity is carried on by one agency. Earlier, share market activity is separate, banking activity is separate, insurance activity is separate. Now all of that is converging. It's called universal banking. And that is posing a huge challenge to the regulator, because we have share market regulator in US, SEC, in India, SEBI, Security Exchange Board. Banking regulator is RBI. In US, it is the Federal Reserve. And insurance regulator, we have got IRDI. In US, it's a respective state-wise insurance is regulated. Now, if all of them is conducted by the same organization, there is a big challenge for the regulators that we have to remember in the global financial system. In other words, the regulator should be very knowledgeable about all the three areas. Otherwise, what is called in the jargon, regulatory arbitrage will take place. One company will present some facts to SEBI, some facts to RBI, and this is what will be happening. So the convergence is another major thing, which is, and I told you, US, they are modifying issues in terms of, commercial bank not doing investment bank activity or selling shares and other things. So to some extent, the convergence is being, what one can call regulated, so that unmitigated it doesn't go. Can go to the next one. Internet has become what, of course, I like lightheartedly say, like Mahabharata. Some of you might have heard about it. For my Chinese friends, it's one of the very major text in India. Our old, huge, popular story. One of them. Other is Ramayana. And it is always told that if something is useful, you will find it in Mahabharata. And if something is not in that story, then it's not useful. Don't bother about it. In other words, people will argue, sir, should I study Mahabharata? Yes. Why? These two reasons. Now, internet has become exactly like that. If something is useful, it will be in the net. If something is not in the net, forget about it. That's not something which is, some of you may know, when the Bible got first printed, earlier it used to be written on this palm leaves, and then it was written on this cloth and other thing. Then finally it got printed. So one of the bishops was very enthusiastic, and then he was, and some people criticized him. Who is going to read this printed material? Anyhow, our tradition is great. We will keep it with that, and like that. This bishop told, wait for a couple of years. If something is important, it will be in print form. If something is not in print form, nobody is going to bother about it. That's what he told. He was a very foresighted man, actually. In Germany, printing was invented. Like that, it is just internet world has changed the way in which we are conducting our affairs. Next one. Next one. I told you technology, how it has altered. Banker, trader, lender, and all-time trading is taking place. Some exchanges in Europe are 24-hour trading, and it's not something day and night, another thing. And exchanges themselves are slowly becoming irrelevant because individuals can transact using their set-up boxes. Global financial centers have come about. Major centers are in Asia, Singapore, and Hong Kong. Now it is shifting to Shanghai, and other centers are in Dubai. Bombay is emerging as another center, right? Okay. Next. China and India are the two major markets where the global financial system is enthusiastic. Fastest growing, both of them. This was pre-pandemic. Post-pandemic as also, it has not reversed or anything, actually. Younger population and what is called the demographic dividend and higher saving rate in both the countries. So the funds are very enthusiastic because the younger population give rise to huge amount of demand for most of the fast-moving consumer goods and smaller and smaller families. Very important. Kindly note, big business wants small families. If there are 12-member family in a household, they don't like it because one fridge only these people will use. If there are two members, 6 households, 6 fridges will be sold. Like that, if one house, 10 people are living, they don't like it. They would like 5 apartments in which two people. Smaller families are encouraged by business. Throughout the last century, 80s and 90s, if you see advertisement, happy family mean husband, wife, and 2 kids, maybe a dog, not more than that. Happy family will never have a mother-in-law or sister-in-law or any of those things. No. So from joint family, we moved to nuclear family. And now, of course, it is one-parent family, neutron family or something. Only single parent, only mostly women actually. But that helps the business in terms of, so they love the societies with the younger population. And they can, both the countries are developing their financial market very fast, both China and in the process, many of you may be reading in the papers and other things, China's recent problems with the financial entities, and then how China is trying to regulate them, another thing. And a huge market in both the countries, what is called bottom of the pyramid, so-called poorer segments, middle class, lower middle class, aspiring, all these people want to be part of the financial market. In other words, part of banking system, non-banking system, part of purchasing bonds, and leveraging on the size of the mass market. So the global finances are very enthusiastic about these two countries. They are competing with each other, obviously, in terms of, sometimes the news report comes, some companies are pulling out of China and coming to India. And, some India is planning to encourage them, another thing. Anyhow, this game will go on. These two are the major focus of the financial system. But the financial system is also facing certain issues. One issue is the amount of funds which are invested in what are called illicit financial locations, what are called tax havens. This is very, very critical. Earlier, Switzerland used to be one of the major centers. Now, so many have come actually. Some people say Singapore is a tax haven. Some people say even UK is a tax haven. Anyhow, UK has got a lot of small territories under that in terms of Virgin Islands, British Virgin Islands, then Cayman Islands, so many of these. There are 71 of them actually. Now, large number of countries are upset about these tax havens because the sovereignty of the country is being questioned by these major financial centers. So they are trying to now regulate their financial operations because this is a very huge market. As I told you, it's not some 1 billion or something, running into trillions. So sovereignty of the countries are being questioned. So what is the original type of an understanding in terms of sovereignty is no more valid. And many countries are now questioning globalization itself. Many countries are questioning European Union. For instance, Britain left the Union. They told, we don't want to be guided by you. Now today Poland is most probably is having difficulties. Poland and Hungary may leave, and then next maybe France. So European Union is crumbling because increasingly they feel the sovereignty of these countries are not being respected. We would like to do our things in our own way. So why are you trying to dictate? So the globalization is having a backlash. This is something which we have to look at it, and how the global financial system is being affected by that in terms of numbers, in terms of new regulations and other things. So the old time we used to call it as Westphalian consensus. Westphalia was a location where after the 100-Year War, all these countries, Germany, Italy, France, combined together, they decided that we must respect sovereignty of the countries. That was the Westphalian consensus. That has been broken many times, increasingly, and Tony Blair openly told when the Iraq invasion took place that Westphalian consensus is dead. Sovereignty of the nations are not very critical. But now individual countries are trying to again assert who is the central authority to decide for us. Trump himself is an example of questioning of the global institution. He pulled out of WHO, he wanted to pull out of WTO. So many in the US feel that the sovereignty of the US is not being respected by these global institutions. Anyhow, so WHO many feel is a mouthpiece of China. They are not following any proper regulation or anything. Whatever China says, they are doing that. So like this, huge amount of conflicts are coming up, which we will look at tomorrow. We will focus on some of these financial system issues and show some numbers also tomorrow. Okay? Thank you very much. Thanks a lot for your patient hearing. Right?
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for the interesting and insightful session. I'm sure that the audience will have many questions in their minds, but as students have the class in next few minutes, so we will not be able to discuss them today. So you just send us forward your questions through mail. We will discuss those questions tomorrow. Okay?
Tomorrow we can take it up also.
Yes,
Today,
sir.
1 or 2 we can, if there is time, we can have. Tomorrow, the remaining we can take it up. No problem.
Yes, sir. So please forward your questions and queries to the email ID, and then we will discuss those questions tomorrow. Thank you so much for being the part of
tomorrow it's the same time, isn't it?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It is the same time.
Same time, and I think the topic is new emerging order and reorganizing global regulatory framework.
Yeah, regulatory framework. We will talk about tax havens and various other financial complications. Right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right, sir. Great.
Thank you so much for being the part.
Thank you.
So
Thank
now,
you.
if you want, you can. If there is a time, you can put 1 or 2 now itself. 1 or 2 questions. Close it.
Would
If there is a
anybody
time.
want to ask?
Yeah.
Would anybody want to ask a question? The only thing, sir, all the students are working on very tight timetables because.
Yeah, I know that. I am telling in case there is a time.
Yeah.
In case.
Yeah. If anybody wants to ask a question, please just go. I think one question we can take, or we can take it tomorrow also. There's no problem.
Yeah. Somebody has mentioned here, Dushyant here. My question, how can a country solve the problem? Yeah. There is a question here actually. How there are more cradles than coffins. How can a country deal with and how badly does it affect the finance? Now it is very difficult, let me be very blunt, to reverse the decline in population. Post-contraceptive world, as I call it, after 1955, when that Michigan chemistry professor found out about the effect of contraceptive, it's not easy for you to reverse it. Anyhow, the choice is not with anyone. So the declining, for instance, China went for 1 child, now they want for 3 child, but they are not very much succeeding. It's not easy actually. Families are less and less, and I shouldn't say that women are less and less interested in having kids. Large number of, particularly large number of kids. The reason is some of the the society and the various literature and the various television channels and everybody has, inculcated the idea that children are a burden. Children are no more a joy. If you get a child, you can't be free, and you can't do whatever you want to do, and all this. So many people are even avoiding marriage. Being a single has become a very popular type of a thing, and post marriage, number of kids have become very, very small. It's adult diapers are the only future for the diaper market, not the kids diaper. Adult diaper are only. They have to focus on that. There is a need and demand for that also, right? So you cannot, and the financial system will significantly be impacted by that. I'm telling you. For instance, a country like Japan, you have to focus more on post to 60 people if you want to sell things. In India, what you are focusing on youth and the products and other thing. There, the market is different for you, right? You have to focus on elderly people, their requirement. There, it's a very funny type of a. But here, the focus is entirely on youngsters. How to keep yourself beautiful for the young girl. There, it is very, very elderly ladies, not beautiful. How to, buttocks, or how to have your shrink less and other thing. So it's a whole ball game is different. It's according to me, my understanding, it's not easy to, it's not going to be reversed or anything, right? So, even in countries like India, not today, around 2050 to 60, right? I won't be around or anything like that. But the decline will start actually. It's not going to be a continuous type of a increase. So demographic decline is very, very significant factor. So tomorrow we will take up others, whichever you are getting it. And I thank all the people, the students as well as the non-students, as well as other type of interested people who could come and spend time on a.
In fact, sir, I can see, I think two people, Mr. Peters Chen from the embassy in Taiwan actually had joined us.
Very good.
And he just left. And I don't know whether this is Krishan Verma, sir, who's here.
Oh, okay.
He's coming.
Anyhow, I thank these Antia and what is that? Wang. Wang name is what?
Jessica.
Jessica. Okay. Antia and Jessica. I thank them also for being
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
See you tomorrow, sir. See you tomorrow.
Taiwan, don't worry. Nothing will happen. Biden has told that he will take care. Don't trust him fully. Right? This Zipin is telling that he will anyhow combine it. So that's what he says. Let's see. We are also there. Don't worry. We are a big country, right? So we will announce Taiwan as one of our states. we have 28 states. One more is not. Am I right? Okay.
So you
How much is
definitely
Taiwan population, incidentally?
No, so far we have
Antia, what is your population?
23,000 million.
22 million.
23 millions.
Huh? 23
23 million.
Ah, that's okay. 2.3 crore, much less than my state, Karnataka. Right? We are 80 million. So, we'll be one state. Very nice. We like it actually. Right.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Right. Okay.
See you tomorrow, sir.
Thanks a lot, Shraddha. Tomorrow.
Thank you, sir.
Tomorrow we can start at 11 or
Thank you so much,
Shraddha? No.
So we will let you know, we will discuss, and then we will let you know by evening, by
Sure,
afternoon.
no problem. No problem.
I think it's better if we extend the time, because that way it will give us more window to discuss.
Yeah, sure.
So we'll do
You decide and then tell me. Now,
Sure, sir.
for me, the whole morning is available for you.
Okay, sir. Thank you
Not
so much,
after
sir.
12:30. 12:30
Sure,
I have
sir.
another class. So up to that I can. Okay.
Sure, sir.
Right.
Thank you so much, sir.
Okay. Thanks, Venkat. Thanks a
Thank you,
lot.
sir. Thank you, sir. See you tomorrow. Bye.
બીજી જોઈ તો લે એકવાર લેક્ચરમાં કોણ કોણ છે
that things can be done to be done. So, scope of research here is mentioned. Survey and what some information, collect the information that also can be done. You can before the get an idea, taking the